uh, more than likely you probably will. Um, you know, for the most part, you know, Twitter's. I mean, I call it a zoo, but it is
It
what
is.
it is. Um, as long as something about the interaction is constructive, I'm all in. But at the same time, when it gets nasty, um, I I tend to get nasty too.
Part of the problem with Twitter, of course, is the character limits. So any point you want to make, you have to either make a train of tweets which no one reads, or you have to do it in like the most blunt, shortest way possible.
You know what's funny? I just explained to the planner at the mill I work at. I
Mhm.
said, look, I said, I try to keep every email to 3 sentences. If you can't say what you need to say in 3 sentences, your economy of words is not as good as it should be because people aren't going to read it.
So for those, just in case we do end up publishing this, my name is Elliot Lindeboot. I am the host of Swine Brothers, and the guest here is,
My name is Andrew Sherwin. I'm a co host of the PETM Racing Podcast.
which you can find on YouTube, and oh, you can find Swine Brothers on YouTube, and you can find PETM on YouTube, and iTunes, right?
iTunes, Stitcher, iHeartRadio. I mean, you can't not find it. All you
It's
have to do is
actually a
search for
podcast,
it.
whereas mine is more just a YouTube show because I actually don't really know how to get it on iTunes. Um,
Um, well, we may be able to help you with that. It's not terribly hard, and it doesn't cost money as far as I'm aware. Um, we did the YouTube as a way to force ourselves to be in the moment and not edit. So that's
yes,
the reason why we started doing that because it's live.
we
And
do. I think we did the first 5 years live, and then Google took away Hangouts, which is what I used. Because I have to explain, I'm fully blind. I'm 100% can't see a thing, so I can't use a lot of visual stuff. So we used Hangouts live. And when Hangouts was taken away, we do it via Skype. My co-host Jim records it, and we don't edit. Like we'll do a little bit of editing, like if we have a technical problem or if or if something weird comes up, but we don't edit anything. Like it's 99.9% live. And in fact, we're getting back into doing live streams.
well, one of the things we discovered about doing it that way is it forced us to be less reliant on editing
Exactly.
software and just let the conversation flow. Sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it doesn't go all that well. Sometimes it goes great. And you just roll with the punches as it goes, you know. I mean,
I find it
but
makes it I find it makes like the conversation a little bit sharper. It makes you a little bit sharper conversationalist as well.
well, yeah. I mean, I think what it does for us is we very much have adopted the uh, sports booth approach to it. Like Rusty is absolutely the play-by-play. He's the director of the show, and I'm the color guy.
Hmm. That
So a lot of times I'm just like I'm thinking of something in the moment, and I just I raise my hand and go, "Hey, I got something to say." and he sees me, and because we used to sit across a desk from each other, like 2 feet
mhm.
away from each other. Now we're 350 miles away from each other, which it hasn't really changed the game because we've known each other for 20 years.
I think
Um,
because I'm in
go,
California. What was that?
no, go ahead, go ahead.
I'm in California, Jim's in Pennsylvania, so there's a lot of weird scheduling conflicts. But I think if we were sitting across the room from each other, we might try to kill each other once per episode.
Well, I think Rusty and I have had some interesting conversations over the years. at races and football games and whatnot. But for the most part, we don't we get along so good that I mean that's the show flows well. Whether or not people like it or not doesn't matter to me all that much. It flows well because he and I have such a good rapport. We understand each other very well. When it comes to the sponsorship thing, so I think what probably chapped my hind end a little bit was that somebody dug up a tweet I sent 9 months ago, and the peripheral to that is we had a chief marketing officer of Microsoft and T-Mobile on our show this week, and he corroborated everything that I said about what I think about B2B sponsorship versus consumer product sponsorship. And I'm like, why am I catching a ration from these people who I don't really even know when, somebody with a 7 or 8 figure salary is like, yep, I'm in the same boat with you on that.
So what we're talking about here is he posted something a while ago talking about the decline of consumer sponsorships in NASCAR, which I do. I mean, I can remember back when, I grew up in the 90s. So I remember the, 98, 99, you had the Miller Lite car, the Interstate batteries and Home Depot, a bunch of, but of course the beer companies, gotta have your beer companies. Um,
Yeah,
and it seems like a lot of sponsorships now are, let me dig up the racing reference from Martinsville, just as a, because I just to see who sponsored what. Just to give the people listening an example of the modern day sponsorships.
sure.
Now there are some Bass Pro Shops which apparently sells more than Bass.
Well, they don't. So BASS is actually an acronym.
Yeah, I know, and they sell boats and things like that. It's actually very interesting. Napa Auto Parts, but there's also Exalta. What is Exalta? I mean, all I know about Exalta is we paint winners.
Yeah. So what Exalta is DuPont jettisoned their truck painting company or division because that's what DuPont does. DuPont does all the research, does all the
Yes.
commercialization, and then once a product reaches a point where the value is something that DuPont wants to sell, they sell it and it gets rebranded. And that's what
So
Exalta is.
okay, so that's basically just DuPont was never a commercial thing. I mean, well, they had Tyvek, but DuPont was
Uh,
never really a commercial.
DuPont commercialized nylon in
Okay,
the
yeah,
late
yeah,
50s, early 60s. They
yeah.
invented nylon.
That's
They
pretty
invented
amazing.
spandex. I
Your
mean,
mileage may vary on that one.
DuPont is a research company that commercializes products that they ultimately jettison so that they can do whatever's next for them.
Sort of
Exalta is, yeah, Exalta is that.
a venture capitalist type thing.
Yeah, except for they do all the research and the work required to make the product commercial.
Hmm.
So so while if you get down into every single specific weed of everything, yes. Can you go to Walmart and buy wood stain that has Exalta's brand on it? Yes. The reason why they are on Bowman's car or they're on Byron's car or they're, you know, a C pillar
Yes.
on Chase Elliott's car is not because you can go buy it at Walmart. It's because they want people that make trucks and cars and have paint shops, commercial paint shops, to buy their car and truck paint. That's why I said that's a B2B product. It's a B2B sponsorship. It doesn't matter that you can go to Walmart and buy wood stain that has Exalta's brand on it. Okay, whatever. the primary reason for their interest in being in NASCAR and their exposure is all about the fact that Hendrick Motorsports and Rick Hendrick has like 150 car
A lot of
dealerships.
yes, yes, a lot of car dealerships.
Yeah, so I mean, that's why I said that's a B2B sponsorship. It doesn't matter, you know, that you can, yeah, anyway, I
So
don't want to digress too.
I have is why is B2B necessarily a bad thing? I mean, maybe you can't buy it, but I mean, I've watched enough IndyCar and Champ Car to realize. I mean, when it whatever Wellbox is, someone owned a company called Wellbox and paid for a couple Champ cars.
I don't think it's a bad thing at all for the sport. I
But it's
think
just a
it's
shame for the fans.
I don't think it's a good way to get fans engaged in products
You're
because
you're
a lot
you're
of
right
people,
about that.
yeah, so that's where I was headed with that. And obviously, we already talked about this, the whole Twitter aspect of only having 288 characters or whatever it is. Um, it so you say something and then it gets turned into something else because somebody didn't hear me say it or they didn't hear me get to explain why I said it. Um, the B2B sponsorship in NASCAR is obviously great for teams, but the thing is, um, it doesn't drive fan engagement.
No,
Like,
like
so imagine you're an 8-year-old or a 9-year-old. Your dad loves race cars, and you're trying to figure out how you might love race cars. Well, what the hell is Ally?
oh
What
no,
is Exalta?
I
What
completely.
is Eris?
What
You
is
know,
Eris? Actually, I have no idea what or Reem. Reem and Eris are the two that I have no idea. But here, I give you an example from my youth. So when I was growing up, I was born in '94. When I was growing up, Mike Skinner was the Lowe's car. Jimmy Johnson, of course, became the we were actually there to see his first win. Strangely enough, Cup win.
yeah, it used to be an RCR car.
Yep. And I thought I was the only one who remembered that back because people, but so we went to Lowe's for a lot of home improvement stuff, and it was very, it was very cool for me as a 8, 9, 10 year old. Wow, we're at the Jimmy Johnson shop, we're at the Jimmy Johnson store, or eating McDonald's and getting a Bill Elliott die. I think I had like 5 or 6 Bill Elliott toy Tauruses from McDonald's. Um, or Corey Mack's McDonald's Dragster, or of course Target Chip Ganassi. Now it's PFC Bank Chip Ganassi, which as much as I'm glad they found a sponsor, what is PFC Bank? I don't care. It's a bank, or PNC Bank, or whatever it's called. Um, yeah, there. I mean, William Byron has the Liberty University car there. You can go to Liberty University if you want to. I think they finally allow rock music.
Yeah, you don't want
Very
me to get into Liberty University.
Yeah, it's very creepy. But there are a lot. I mean, Ally is a bank, I think.
It's what GMAC used to be.
Yeah.
It's a rebranded version of General Motors
Okay.
Automotive Loan
And
Center.
those with
It's
long
the
memories.
partnership. It's the GM partnership bank. So like if you show up at a GM dealership and you say I want to buy a Chevy or I want to buy a Cadillac or whatever, they
Yeah,
will offer you the loan services of Ally, which used to be GMAC.
those with long
Or you
memories.
can bring your own bank
Yes.
to the party.
You might remember Jack Sprague's GMAC Chevrolet
I don't remember that particular car. I do
truck.
know who Jack Sprague is.
He
Um,
drove the 24 GMAC Chevrolet for Rick Hendrick in the late 90s. That's how I remember. And of course, Brian Vickers had the GMAC for a while.
Vickers had GMAC. Casey Mears drove GMAC
Of
before he was
course,
in the 5 car. Yeah, no, I mean,
There have
Yes,
always been these sponsors, but you're right,
but
they're a little
it's
more prevalent.
yeah, it's not. So the difference is, and this is where the language gets weird, is you're looking at a tweet that is just, I mean, it's just words about a thought. And the reality is, yes, what I said was you can't buy these things. You can go apply for an ally loan. You can go, if you own a business that paints trucks or cars, you can buy Exalta's premium products. But it's not that's not NASCAR your everyday fan. They're not doing that.
Exactly. They're not. And by the way, just on a humorous note, you can buy a Haas CNC machine. They will actually sell one to you as a member of the public. What the hell are you going to do with it? I don't know.
Well, they will. You're right. You're 100% right about that, but their base model is
I
$21,000.
know it's amazing. I was reading about someone who started up a who was it? I think Gene Haas actually had started up his CNC stuff in an apartment with the CNC machine. That must have been one cramped apartment.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's great equipment. It's known globally now. I mean, it supports an F1 team. It supports a NASCAR Cup team. I mean, you know,
Speedway
I don't
racing
know.
and
I don't know who your boy Delano is.
I don't know who that is either.
I don't know who that guy is that's been party to a lot of these different tweets. And yes, I deleted a bunch of them because I wasn't feeling very good about myself in the way that those conversations had, and I didn't feel like that was a very good representation of what it is that we do here at PETM. And so, yes, I deleted a bunch of tweets.
Yeah, he was a little more
Reason
extreme than
why I
I
said
was.
what I said today
Yeah.
is there's pe- so you don't know who you're talking to. You make assumptions, and I'm not talking about necessarily you, Elliot. I'm saying people make assumptions and they don't know. You know, I I said what I'd do today. I deleted that because you know what? I don't know that that necessarily matters. Maybe it needed to be said at the time from my perspective. But what I do day to day
Yeah.
is I run a process engineering team that supports $90 million worth of equipment. Okay, so
Yeah.
I, I I'm not stupid, and I'm not. You know what I mean? Like it got nasty, is what it did. It got so nasty. I got text from 4 different people.
A lot of my jokes and yeah, I have gotten like, wait, why were you that mean? A lot of my jokes about like country music and stuff, they're just jokes. I don't actually think all country music listeners are morons or whatever. My dad listens to country, but
Well, you just what you have to do though is you have to understand who you're speaking with and how it comes off, because the reality is the way the tweet is written, you have a certain way of interpreting the way that you decided to use your words, but you have no decision rights over how it's received.
I sometimes forget about that. Honestly, I sometimes forget like, oh, not everyone because I kind of assume that everyone on the internet has a little bit of tongue in cheek because I always do. Like I said, oh,
I do with people I have rapport with, which is why I wanted to have this conversation.
I'm
And
glad you did.
the I it is 100% truth that I went to bed before you sent me that DM for this link. I just
I was
did.
like, come on, where is he?
I was out.
Oh no,
I,
I understand.
I was up at 3:30 this morning because of how early I went to bed. Okay, so that's where we're at. I've been
It
up
was
since 3:30 today.
it was 10 on a Saturday. It was 10 on a Thursday, your time, and I do understand it. I actually had the headset on because I said, because I watch a lot of sprint car racing. Because I love sprint cars, and yes, I still maintain that to me, dirt racing is probably some of the best racing in America. but again, as you said, that is my opinion. And I was like, well, can we wait till after the All Star feature? Because I wanted to. Tony Stewart won, by the way. Um, and so yeah, I sent the Skype link, and I have the headphones on. I was like, where is he? And so yeah, I've been a part of a lot of debates where people have said that, oh yeah, I'll be right there, and then they just never show up. So as
Well,
far
I
as
wanted to make sure that you knew that it wasn't because I was ducking the opportunity to speak, because the opportunity to speak is important to develop a rapport or to understand that maybe there's not a rapport to be developed.
yep,
Um, you
because
know,
Twitter only takes you so far because again the character limits and as I said before, the only way to get your point across is by either talking or writing a Twitter. I mean, I try to be brief with my emails and stuff, but I don't think the sponsor thing can be really summed up with a brief explanation.
no, it probably can't. And people are going to not like stuff, and I honestly I don't care. I mean, I've been in of the business that I work in, I've been in every side of it except for procurement. So I understand it very well. And it translates very well to discussing what I see happening with sponsorship because business is business at the end of the day. This is what's happening.
Yeah,
And, what I see is I watched races from the 90s when I wasn't a fan yet and didn't really even know much about it. And I'm like, damn, just about every car out there, you can go buy whatever that is that's on that car.
I
And
yes,
now it's like most of it you can't go buy. You
Martinsville
can't
was
just
a
go buy it.
Martinsville was a very strange because a lot of them. Okay, let me just take you through. We had Bass Pro Shops, Napa Auto Parts.
Yep.
Give me a
Both
second here.
stores that you can go visit and buy their stuff.
FedEx. You can use FedEx if you want.
You
Um,
can, but that's still not a consumer product brand association for Joe Gibbs.
True, but FedEx has
That
been a
is a
part of.
business to business relationship.
True,
The whole point is that the Joe Gibbs footprint uses FedEx. Same thing with Valvoline and Hendrick Motorsports. It was Quaker State before that. It's not,
true,
and you can go buy those things at the store, but the point of the sponsorship is because of the dealerships.
true. FedEx has used that for a long time. They sponsored the kart championship for 5 or 6 years as well. Of course, Liberty University. We've talked about that. HendrickCars.com, which yeah. Um,
Yeah, it's Hendrick's version of CarMax.
yes, and we all know why it's on that car. Uh, Shell for Joey Logano. I'm just looking at the results here. Shell for Joey Logano.
Well, it's more Pennzoil because of the gas exclusiveness that Sunoco owns over the NASCAR business. But they
Now,
only have that for like one more year.
this one's troubling. Christopher Bell's sponsored by Toyota. Hmm, that's a little
Yeah,
troubling. So,
TRD.
unfortunately, unfortunately, NASCAR isn't as big as it used to be, and company. Well, it's not even that companies aren't sponsoring. They're not lined up like they used to. I mean, you'll get one or two sponsorships, but unfortunately, companies aren't lined up like they used to be. I mean, Target got rid of Chip. How long is Target? When I was 3 years old, it was Target Chip Ganassi. You know, Target's been was
That was
sponsoring.
Felix Sabatis's sponsorship. He
Well, it was,
developed that relationship.
well in IndyCar it was Target slash Scotch Video, and that was before I was born.
Yeah.
For
Yep.
Chip Ganassi.
Yep.
Um, so I mean, how many beer companies are there anymore sponsoring? So it's just a different. I
Well,
agree.
look what happened with Harvick and Keselowski.
Yeah,
Miller Lite went from 18 races to 6 races to 2, and now it's Keystone Light, and Harvick went from Budweiser to Busch Light.
Yes, it's
So
the
it's a different little bit of an animal now than it was before, but that's because NASCAR was not right sized. They blossomed and there were no more blooms to follow.
they wanted Keystone because they want to compete with Bush. I didn't. That was a very
Well,
strange.
it's a bargain brand beer and it's
Yeah.
Coors brand, which is in the Miller Coors fold.
Yep.
I
That
mean,
makes
it makes
sense.
sense, but it's
Yeah.
not it's not their it's not their number one brand.
No.
And and that's interesting. I mean, I think Bush's commercials are fantastic. They're doing a great job marketing, but they probably don't have a lot of reach outside of NASCAR.
Uh.
I don't think
No.
Bush is going to run that commercial with the dude in the flannel shirt during an NFL game
No. Or
because they're going
during.
to run a Budweiser commercial with the Clydesdales.
Yeah. Or during. Yeah. I I need to pay attention to commercials a little bit more just to see the different, because I mean, it's the same in every. I mean, it's funny because in sprint car and modified racing, drink every time somebody's sponsored by a paving or construction company. You will get nice and drunk. So yeah, that's very strange that Bush, again, it's the bottom of the barrel as far as I know, at least. And
Well, Natty's supposed to be a lesser brand than Bush, but I think Natty tastes better than Bud Light myself. But so you might find this to be interesting. So while all this stuff was going on the last 36 hours on the old Twitter, I spent 30 minutes on the phone with Bob Levine today
nice.
because we're that close. I was like,
Wow.
I'd like to talk to you about something. He's like, yeah, here's my cell phone number. How about 3 o'clock? Like,
I
I have
actually
Bob
have.
Levine's cell phone number. Okay,
Wow.
so I mean, we have to be really careful. This is what I'm talking about. You have to be really careful. Like, when you try to assign a persona or a stigma to somebody in this space, and I'm not necessarily talking about you, Elliot. I'm talking about all the peripheral stuff that I watched and saw and maybe reacted to. It's like, okay, um, do you have the ability to text Jeff Gluck and get a response within 12 hours? Because I do. Matt
No.
Weaver is a friend of mine. I have his phone number.
I do have the ability to talk to. Well, and it's also another thing. If you want to associate with these people, Rutledge, because I'll be honest. I'm not a big.
Rutledge Wood grew up in the same town that I grew up in.
Okay.
He went to the rival high school that I went to.
Let me
He's
just
1 year
say.
older than me.
Let me just say. I'm not a big fan of Rutledge Wood's broadcasting style. Okay. That's
He's a
that's
goofball.
that's not a reflection on him. It's just his broadcasting. He actually seems like a cool person who likes cars. I'm not a big fan of his broadcasting style. And Rutledge was like, "Well, don't burn your bridges because you never know who you're going to have to work with." So you're right, and I do try to, because I am trying to start a racing podcast. I'm looking for a co-host, so I am trying to be a little bit like less, you know. Um, no, I can't. I don't have Matt Weaver's phone number. I know a couple of metal bands, but that's I do get mentioned on race broadcasts though, on USAC and All Star.
Well, that's fun. I
Yeah,
mean,
I mean I
that's
love sprint
that's
cars.
good stuff. I mean, what I'm saying is that it's not this isn't a measuring contest. What I'm saying is
Okay. I kind of turned it into one because I was
no,
because
no, 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 no. You didn't. You're doing. It's fine.
back in
You
the yeah.
didn't. You just you made analogies to similar things. What I was trying to say from my perspective is you don't know what you don't know. So you got to be real careful what you accuse people of
Yep.
because I deliberately dumb what I say down in order to reach a little bit wider audience. Not necessarily on the podcast, but a lot of times on the Twitter,
Hmm.
right up until the point where somebody, you know, it catches the precipice. Then I go, okay, I'm ready to go in on this.
Yes.
Let's give it hell. I know where the gas pedal's at. And you know what? Yeah, it doesn't matter that you don't listen to our show because I honestly, I don't, I mean, I care, but I don't care. Like, people are going to find what they want to listen to and they're going to listen to it. And they're either going to like it or they don't. And they're going to go, yeah, maybe this isn't for me. Or, oh man, I like this. And, one of the secret weapons that we have down here in the Southeast is everybody thinks you're stupid because you talk the way I talk. And you just got to be a little bit more leery of the fact that, hey, I might sound like this, but I test at like 140 IQ.
See, I
So,
never because my extended family's from Texas, so I know and I have friends around the South, so I know people think, oh wow, I, I find it kind of interesting how some Southern drivers in North Carolina don't have accents anymore, and I always wondered if that was deliberate. Let's put it that way. Or like
well,
Tony Stewart's accent has, if you watch like an interview with him from 92 or 93, he has the thickest Indiana accent you've ever heard. And he toned it down.
it happens naturally depending on where you're at.
Hmm.
So I lived in Michigan for 2 years, and all of a sudden, I caught myself saying words the way they say them. I was like, oh, this is how this happens. This is how you assimilate to your environment.
Yep.
And, obviously, I sound what I sound like now because I've been in Georgia and North Carolina for the last almost 15 years, and people sound like me. That's pretty much what we sound like. I mean, the
And
ones
you
in
guys do it.
Appalachia are a little different. They sound a little different, but for the most part, this is what we sound like. This is what my family sounds like. My mother sounds like this. Her whole side of her family. My dad is from San Francisco, California. He actually grew up in Vallejo, same town that Jeff
Jeff
Gordon's
Gordon.
from. But he's
Uh,
been in the South since 1976. He graduated from Clemson in Clemson, South Carolina.
yes.
So he kind of he figured out how to say fixing to and learn how to use that phrase.
Yeah, I've heard that. So there's an interesting story about Clemson University actually. So do you know who Raymond Parks is?
Yes, I do.
So I guess Raymond Parks's uncle or great uncle Benjamin Parks discovered gold, and
Dahlonega.
yes, and I guess he sold his share of the gold to a guy named, I think it was John Calhoun, and the profits allowed a relative of Calhoun, I can't really name, Thomas Clemson, to open Clemson University.
Yep.
So
Yep.
the Parks family, um, that's
Well,
so fascinating.
so Raymond Parks's wife
Hmm.
has been trying to set up a scholarship at Georgia Tech for someone who is interested in getting into racing.
That's a
We've
good,
been in
yes.
talks with them for years, for the people that are working on that to figure out when the best time was to have them on because Rusty and I
Yeah.
both went to Georgia Tech, and Raymond Parks, he had a gas station
Yep.
in Atlanta that it used to be on the campus of Georgia Tech, like where the campus is now migrated out a little bit. It used to be like what would be inside the campus of Georgia Tech. That was
Wow.
the first filling station he ever bought.
Hemp Hill.
And he is one of them. Yes, Hemp Hill. Hemp Hill stops now way before you get to the middle of campus. But it used to go all the way into where the middle of campus is now. There's a thing there called the Campanile that is like basically a statue that is kind of a
Yes.
replica of the Tech Tower. Um, and that's where his filling station was. And he is arguably the most prominent self-made businessman in all of Atlanta that Atlanta has ever known. But he started by running booze out of Dawsonville to Marietta,
So for
and
those
then
of you who
running
may not,
booze from Marietta to Atlanta.
for those of you who wonder, well, okay, it's a filling station. Raymond Parks lived, so back in the day, the only way to buy gasoline was from like a hardware store and put it in yourself, which meant slopping it everywhere. And gasoline kind of is flammable. So the thing about filling stations back when they were invented was someone else could actually pump, this is back before they were, pump your own gas thing. So filling stations were huge back then.
Yeah,
So
they'd buy gas in like 10-gallon containers,
yeah, from
and the
Macy's and,
the attendant would put it in for you.
yep. The history of NASCAR. So I knew about like, you know, who's early, if you see a NASCAR DVD, it's like the first drivers were moonshiners. Anyway, Bill France. And it wasn't until I found a NASCAR DVD that talked about Raymond Parks and Lloyd C. and Roy Hall. I'm fascinated by the history. But
Well, yeah, go ahead.
but so the whole thing about Raymond Parks is he was denied entrance into the Motorsports Hall of Fame for years and years and years because of not his moonshine, but his slot machine business.
Hmm.
And Smokey Yunick didn't like that too much. Of course, Smokey Yunick didn't like a lot of things. His book, by the way, if you never read it, is really entertaining.
The one that Tom Jensen wrote.
No, the Smokey Yunick wrote his own book, The Best Damn Garage in Town.
Oh, I haven't read that. So what I have read is Tom Jensen's book called Cheaters,
Hmm,
the bad things good racers do in the pursuit of speed.
nice. That
It's
sounds
an
like
excellent book. And you talk about Raymond Parks. I have a book with a bookmark in it right now called Driving with the Devil,
I
and
just finished reading it again.
it's Raymond Parks. It's all there. I just got goosebumps thinking about it.
Me too, actually.
I've also got a bookmark in he wrecked me, so I wrecked him back. That's
Oh,
about the
that's a great one.
1979 Daytona 500.
That's a great one.
Um, I mean, I read the physics of NASCAR in 2008, and I was like,
I
I
never read
already
that
knew
one.
all this shit.
Yeah, right.
Like
Yeah,
I didn't learn anything, but what it did is confirm what I already knew about at that time, the Gen 5 car, the
yep.
way that you would adjust track bars and tire
Gen 5.
management.
Have you heard of, well, you've read probably about, I mean, those Gen 5 cars at the end, they were like completely offset to one side.
Oh yeah, they look like kidney beans.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were crazy weird.
Yeah, they call it the Twisted Sister car.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
they're nuts. If you go back and look at pictures of it and go,
I
well,
didn't
wait
know
a
that.
minute, what in the world is that car doing right there? Because
uh,
like the left side front fender is like 6 inches higher than the right side.
yeah, it was insane. The COT. I mean, so I was at Sonoma one year. This is back in the old Mike, Larry, and Daryl, and I was listening to practice. And you know how you listen on scanners, you listen to the feed, what they talk about during the commercials.
Hmm.
Or maybe it's anyway. So Daryl Waltrip and Jeff Gordon were talking about the original car of tomorrow, and I think it was Jeff Gordon, was like, when I saw this car, I was like, this is the ugliest son of a bitch I've ever seen. He hated the COT.
You know what's weird? So this is and I'll drive people mad all the time because I have a contrarian opinion on a lot of things, and I don't necessarily do it intentionally. I just have a contrarian opinion. I
Same.
liked the COT. I liked the wing. I was like, that's cool.
The
You
one
can put
thing,
those side shields on it, and you can do side force management with the wing. You can't do that with a blade.
nope. The one thing I didn't like was how easily they flipped. That's the one thing I really like. Carl Edwards and Kozlowski at Atlanta.
Hmm.
That one was scary
That was
because
that was pretty gross. Okay, so I'm gonna tell you a story real quick, uh, because Rusty and I kind of grew up as race fans together. Like we started getting into it together, yada yada yada, and we were Casey Kane fans. Okay,
me too.
but you know, Rusty was a Rusty Wallace fan because I kind of directed him that way. But he always liked Carl, and I always kind of liked Brad. And when that happened, like we were sitting in the stands we were on the front straightaway at Atlanta Motor Speedway,
Mhm.
and we weren't listening to either one of their radios because we were listening to Casey Kane. And people started standing up because Carl had been chasing him for like 3 laps. And we
Yes,
didn't know that because we were watching Casey's car. And they started standing up. And next thing you know, Brad's freaking upside down barrel rolling. It was like, what in the hell just happened? Because
yes.
the that was the end result of the wreck that happened on the very first lap of the race,
I remember I was watching
where
it.
Brad got into Carl in turn 2, and Carl was none too pleased. And that stupid splitter that was on that thing, I agree with that splitter being stupid.
Dale
Uh,
Earnhardt Jr. hated the
but
splitter.
it cut down Carl's tire, and he went 2 laps down, like right off the jump.
I remember when the COT was first being introduced. I was about 13, and I saw because I told you before I can't see, right. So I had to get a diecast of the COT to see what it looked like. So I did. I think it was Casey Kane's car actually, because I was a big fan of Casey Kane from his old USAC days back on
Yeah,
ESPN
so they
Thunder.
introduced it in '07,
Uh,
and it
At
went
some tracks,
live in '08, and then the Gen 6 came out in
2013.
2013. Yep.
So I remember looking at this well, touching, I guess, whatever. Look, I see. I say
Or
looking. I
are we
say
on
I
set? Yeah. Yeah, sorry, I'm interrupting you. Go ahead.
I say looking, but I actually mean touching, just because I've been, that's just the way. So anyway, I remember studying the COT, and I just remember thinking, if that spoiler runs into something or gets bowed in or whatever, that's going to cut down a tire. I remember this. So 2010, I remember watching. I was watching it, and Atlanta's a long race. I mean, especially if you're not there at the track. Atlanta was a little, so I think I was watching something else, and I went back to, another form of racing, and I went back to Atlanta, and I was watching, and Mike Joyce said, Carl Edwards has turned over Brad Keselowski, not turned over. And I was like, what the hell? So my my
Oh, it was nasty. And
my
if you
dad
think, yeah,
was watching a little bit behind me thanks to DVR. So I went in to see his take on it. He was like, it it took us a while to like Carl Edwards again after that. I mean, okay, he didn't mean to turn him, but flip him, but that was insane. Whenever I'm at, so you guys listen to the radio when different radio when you're at the track.
yeah, we listened to the driver that we like.
I like doing that, but the problem is with me, of course, is I can't see what's going on. So I don't. I can't follow the race if I'm just listening to the radio. So I mainly listen to MRN or the TV feed, and because during the commercials, for example, how many of you know Mike Bagley's secret nickname?
I do not know his secret
Big
nickname.
Sexy.
Yeah, no, so I totally understand. Well, I don't totally understand, obviously, because I can see. So I have that sense. So that changes my perspective from yours.
That's Mike
But
Bagley's secret nickname is Big Sexy. Anyway, what are you saying?
big sexy. All right.
Anyway,
Um,
continue.
but I mean, So what is I guess what it boils down to is at the end of the day, the reason why we listen to the driver audio is we go to when it's a normal situation and we're not dealing with pandemics, we go to about 5 or 6 races a year, and about two of those, maybe three, will do media stuff,
Yes.
which and so that's a little bit of a different animal.
Oh yeah.
And but so we listen to the driver audio because we can see the race,
Oh, exactly.
and
My
and it's
dad does
just
the same thing.
it's a different experience because the other 32 races a year I'm going to watch on television
Yep.
and I
My,
can
my
hear what they're saying. But
yep.
I mean, like when I'm at home, and because, well, I'm a visual person, which I understand is problematic for you and your certain
Yeah.
skill set, but I'll have Twitter on one screen, I'll have the leaderboard on a screen, I'll have the audio for Chase Elliott,
Mhm.
and then I'll have the race on my actual television. All of it's playing through laptops.
Yep.
All of it. Like
I
I have a YouTube television subscription and I have two laptops, my
nice.
personal and my work. And so I'll have three screens always. I always have three screens.
That
And
reminds me of certain setups when, because I'm also in the sports car community, and there's the 24 Hours of Le Mans is every June, and I know people who have like four TVs when they set up for the 24 because they don't want to miss anything, and they'll have like onboard cameras and stuff like that. And I'll also I try to tweet out like the race, or I might tweet out thoughts, but again, I have a screen reader which talks. It's actually quite loud, so then I can't hear what they're saying. And I don't have a YouTube TV subscription. I have to find the race by other means. So it's a little bit complicated. But no, I completely understand. If you're visual, like I said, my dad likes the radio. I like the radio, and I will listen. Back when Danica Patrick was racing IndyCar, she was always entertaining at Long Beach because she hated street courses, and it was always interesting to hear her.
oh, that's funny. Yeah, I enjoyed listening to her when she was racing Xfinity
Oh
for
yes,
Junior
yes,
because I mean, she always had something to say. And that's I don't know, that's why I love the scanner. And I
oh
used
yeah,
to listen even at the end of Casey's career before his health situation necessitated that he don't rate race cup anymore. I started listening to Clint because I
oh
really like
Clint's entertaining.
spotter.
Yes,
I like I like Brett Griffin a lot.
yeah,
Uh,
he's great.
he's funny. I don't have I can't stand his politics, but I don't care because to
Nah,
me it's the Sammy Kershaw rule. We don't talk about politics, religion, or ex-wives. That's it. If we can not do any of those things, then we probably have fun at the racetrack. And so that's why I don't care what Brett's personality is in terms of that, but they're hilarious. I mean, Brett will get on the radio and go wreck that motherfucker.
I know a guy who will hate me saying this, but because he hated Clint Boyer. I don't know how much iRacing you do or how much you know about iRacing.
I mostly make fun of it.
Clint
I,
Boyer, I
I'm,
guess, gets
I'm,
drunk and plays iRacing and tries to crash everyone.
so that's hilarious to me.
I think it's hilarious. Well, no, no. I see. I think it's hilarious because I don't do iRacing. If I was like in a position for a good race, I'd probably want to kill the guy. So, Casey Kane, by the way, I saw him come from way back to finish fifth, I think, in a World of Outlaws race. He's still pretty talented. Because I watch a lot. Because
He just won a race just a few weeks ago.
you know who won a race a couple weeks ago? David Stremme.
and Brad Sweet just won 3 out of 4, and he
Yeah,
drives
Brad
for
Sweet,
Casey Kane.
the big cat. Yeah, Kyle Larson finished second in the late model race, or a third. I'm sorry, yesterday. He's racing tonight. I don't know what's going on. I haven't paused. The All Star Circuit of Champions at Williams Grove. Yeah, the big cat. Uh, Brad Sweet, super good. Alex Bowman has a sprint car team now.
I saw that.
Yeah, I didn't know that until
I think he and Larson are partners in that. I think
yeah,
it's Larson Bowman Motorsports or something like that.
surprised me. So and I've seen a lot of these guys come up. So so when did you start getting into 2005 maybe? When did you
4.
start getting into Casey
Well,
Kane's rookie
so
year?
the first race I ever watched was 2001 Daytona 500, and we all
I
know what
watched that
happened that day.
live. I watched that live. Yes.
My roommate in college was very frustrated with me about how often and how loud and how late I would put Days of Thunder on our television in our room.
I've watched that in 10 years.
And so he kind of, I mean, and he was at the time, well, I mean, he still would be, uh, was 6 years older than me, I want to say. 5 or 6 years older than me. But um, he was like, "Hey, if you're gonna turn Daytona or Days of Thunder on at freaking Mach 2 volume at 3 a.m. every Friday and Saturday night, we're watching the Daytona 500 because I need you to understand why it is you like that movie." Because he wasn't a race fan either. And so we watched it, and then Dale Earnhardt died, and it was
It was
like,
a hell of a thing for.
holy shit!
I
Like
was
I'm in now. I'm like, this is monumental.
I was well.
And so the first
I
race we
was
went to
yeah.
was 2004. That was the race. That was called. No, Dale Jr. won the race.
Yeah, 2005 was
2005
Edwards'
was
first.
Carl Edwards' first win. Past Jimmy Johnson coming out of turn 4.
See, I was because I liked Edwards from the trucks, but I was also a Jimmy Johnson fan, and I just remember listening to PRN and On My Feet. So I remember, I was born into racing. I mean, I was literally like my dad was a big racing fan. My first memories are of liking the sounds of engines. I went to my first race when I was 3. 1998 California 500. Darrell Waltrip's last top 5 driving Steve Park's car.
Oh yeah, yeah. The DEI number 1,
Yep.
the Pennzoil car.
I watched Steve Parks crash live at Atlanta during practice. I just remember going, you know, so I remember, so I'd had experience with death. A guy named Greg Moore, a fantastic driver, had been killed in '99 at Fontana. But 2001 Daytona 500, I watched that live. It's a hell of a thing to take when you're a 6-year-old. You know,
Yeah. Well,
how
it
to,
was a hell of a thing to take as a 20-year-old.
yeah. And I didn't really comprehend it. I mean, we were also at Vegas in 2011 during the IndyCar race.
Oh my God. So I'll tell you this, since we're oversharing, Rusty and I, we don't talk a lot outside of the podcast.
Mhm.
So when we text each other, it I mean, there's usually some purpose behind it. And
You guys
so
don't, yeah,
I was watching that race. Actually, I
mhm,
turned it on after it happened.
yes,
And I texted Rusty and I said, Rusty, you need to turn the television on
right
ESPN right
now.
now, the IndyCar race. I said, I'm pretty sure somebody's dead.
So,
And so rest in peace, Dan Weldon. But
yep,
he did the exact same thing to me 5 years later.
with
Um,
Wilson.
yeah, Wilson. He said,
Yep,
hey, he texted me, he said, hey, cut your TV on, IndyCar,
at
shit looks
Pocono.
bad.
So
And
I remember we went to Vegas. So we went for the whole weekend. We watched the truck race. By the way, that was Ron Hornaday's final win. And then
that's
we watched
interesting. That's an
And
anecdotal piece of interesting evidence.
and, and then we watched the yeah, right. And then we watched the there was a Supercross race up in Vegas, so we watched that. So no, it's I mean there have been some bad times at the river, but there have been some great times we saw. I saw Matt Kenseth's only win in 2003 in Vegas.
Oh, damn.
Tony
You know what's
Stewart's.
funny? I never did. I didn't like Matt all that much until I got later into my fandom and realized how funny he is.
He is in a very deadpan way. He's
He
the most
is
deadpan human being I've ever heard.
he's hilarious. And but it was all for reasons that didn't shouldn't have mattered to me personally, but like so and this is probably the reason why I ended up being such a huge fan of Jeff Gordon was when Kenza dumped Jeff at Bristol in 2007 or 2008. No, 2006.
Hmm.
He dumped him at Bristol in the spring out of the
I
league.
remember.
And Jeff waited all the way until September at, I guess it was Chicago. Yeah, it was Chicago when they were running 1-2. And he's like, I'm fixing,
Payback.
I'm fixing to take your win just like you took mine, bitch. And I love that. I love that that attitude. That just,
See,
hey, you took something from me. I'm gonna take something from you.
it's funny you say that because I can remember when Gordon was first. He would have never done that in the late '90s or early 2000s. He was we didn't like him because he won a lot and he cried. It sounds stupid, but I respected him, but I wasn't a huge fan. But I was see, it took me a while to like Tony Stewart, but not for any like logical reason. My dad was a Tony Stewart fan. You can't be the same fan as your dad, you know?
Oh, that's interesting. I maybe I think I benefit in a lot of ways that my dad wasn't the one who introduced me to racing. Um, because I don't have to worry about that. Like I
I
can,
don't care
what I
anymore,
get to
obviously.
watch about my dad now, being him being a Clemson alumnus, is how much fun he's having with how much success they're having in football,
Yep.
and just how I mean he just is. I mean, and I love just buying every Christmas, buying him something Clemson, and he loves it. And
It's
I,
a friendly thing, by the way. I didn't actually dislike Tony Stewart. I remember when he was racing IndyCar, so it wasn't like I hated Tony. It was a joking thing when I was a kid. These days he's a Harvick fan because of Stuart Haas, and I always joke that he jumped on the bandwagon because I can remember when Kevin Harvick was racing for his dad in trucks, and Southwest Tour,
Bakersfield,
Bakersfield,
uh,
all
Car
streets of LA
Kerners,
race.
Kernersville. Yeah, no, yeah. So yeah, I get that.
But
I don't know where I got the racing gene from. I don't know that I necessarily even understand it now. I just know that I've got it.
I think once it gets, I mean, so there's a racing announcer named John Hindhaugh who does a lot of sports car stuff. He likes NASCAR too. He always said he wants to broadcast a short track race. I was like, John, your head's gonna explode. But he loves racing, right? He's been a racing fan since he was a kid. I guess there was a distant relative of his who lives in Australia who's also named Hindhaugh, who owned a car that won the big Australian, the Bathurst 1000. So
Hmm.
I think racing is in your blood. It just it. But
I
how
think
how
I mean once you see it, then you're like, okay, I get this. Like I'm in, and I'm all the way in.
I couldn't
And that
imagine my life with. I mean, right now before you called, I was watching three different races.
so I'll say definitively I don't do that. I think sprint car racing is some of the coolest stuff I've ever seen live. I've seen it at the Charlotte 410s. and
Oh, that's a great little track.
it's absurd. I've been to the Little 500 at
Oh,
Indianapolis.
Anderson. Yeah, I've always wanted to see. That's such a crazy race.
It was absolutely bonkers.
Yeah,
Um,
33 sprint cars on a little quarter-mile track.
and I mean, my Indy experience was so good that I'm just gonna keep going back. I went to Indy in the middle of February just to hang out with a guy who took me to the Indy 500. I'm like, hey man,
When did you go to Indy for the 500?
2019.
Ah, yeah. My no, sorry, Pagano won that year. Um, I've never been to Indy. I go to the Long Beach Grand Prix every year for IndyCar, and I used to go to the California race, the 500.
Hmm.
Although we didn't go the last year because it was the same weekend as Sonoma, and it was like, okay, I love California, but we get to camp out at Sonoma, and every Saturday, Saturday at Sonoma, there's a racetrack up in Calistoga Speedway to do sprint car racing, and we go there on the Saturday. So we go to a race during a race. So we go to IndyCar at Laguna. So I've never been to the 500. I know I need to go, and I do want to see the little 500. I've seen it on on the internet, and it is fascinating. And well, and also another thing is you didn't grow up with sprint car racing. I grew up with sprint car racing on TV, USAC on ESPN, World of Outlaws on TNN. So that was if I wasn't, grounded for not doing my homework because I was 5 years old, that was my Friday and Saturday night. So I know a lot of the drivers and I follow a lot of. So it's for me, it's like you also like football and stuff, right? For me, it's
Yeah,
for me,
I
I
like
res-
I like most sports.
I respect most sport, and I wouldn't mind. Like I went to a hockey game the couple years ago. I don't know the first thing about hockey, but I enjoyed being there. But I don't watch it on TV. For me, I'm a race fan. I'm the guy who will wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning to watch a sports car race from Spain or whatever. So I'm one of those guys. I'm you know racing and music, as you've probably guessed from my various tweets, are my thing. I wanted to jump back really quick and say what you said. I forgot to say it at the time. You said it. You care, but you don't care when someone says they don't listen to your show, and that's kind of how I feel. It kind of irks me, but it's like, well, okay, if you don't like it, I will try to listen more. I was, you know, I never have the time. Like, there's a show called Door Bumper Clear, which I hear is really good, but I never have the time to listen to it.
I've listened to every single episode.
Like the Dale Jr. download, I find myself skipping over the banter to get to the interviews.
I do that. I do that. No, I cherry pick.
I just I don't like that. I well, okay, the one I was listening to was Chat House, and they were eating beef jerky or something like that, canned beef jerky. I don't
Oh, the
care.
dip. Yeah, the dip can beef jerky. That was hilarious.
It was kind of disgusting, actually.
Well, uh,
It sounds disgusting.
it's actually not terrible, but I understand.
But it's like I don't know. I wanted to hear what Chat House had to say. So I do listen. I
Well, I
listen to.
mean, so you got to understand from my perspective, I've chewed Copenhagen for 20 years, and I finally gave it up like a year ago. So the
Oh
beef
no, I
jerky
completely.
dip thing is funny.
I thought
To
it was
me it
funny.
is. To me it is. Doesn't have to be funny to you, but to me
No,
it was
it
pretty
was good.
funny.
It was good, but I didn't get the joke at first until I had to listen to like a previous episode where they were talking about it because they didn't really. Oh, I have some canned beef jerky. I was like, so I had to. But I listened to. There's a great interview with Dinner with Racers did last year. Mark Martin, who is, in my opinion, one of the greatest stock car drivers who ever lived.
The man knows more about how a car works than
He
probably anybody alive.
Oh man, and just I mean, how many? He and Dick Trickle, I think. Dick Trickle is so underrated. I don't know if you know much about him.
I know plenty. Dude, I do a lot of research because I'm
Okay,
because I'm interested. I don't
No, no, no.
care to do
I
the
don't.
research for the show, but no, I'm an absolute student of the sport. Like
Okay,
the
that's
same way
fantastic.
I'm a student of life, and I'm a student of engineering, and I'm a student of my profession. I'm a student of NASCAR.
Okay,
So I know
I'm
all
glad to know that.
kinds of shit that
Okay,
I probably shouldn't know
no, I
because
wasn't
I
trying to beat the meeting or anything. It's just some people don't, and I love history. So yeah, Dick Trickle. Someone needs to write a book about Dick Trickle, I think, because he did the NASCAR thing. I think he was in a little bit too late, but he won a lot of races in other parts of. But
he
Mark
was
Mark,
like 47 when he made his first Cup start.
yeah, he got in way too late.
Unheard of.
Well, look at Harry Gant. If I told you today that there was a 39-year-old rookie in NASCAR, you'd be like, so? So what? Who cares? But Harry Gant managed, I mean, handsome Harry.
Well, so we've had Rick Mast on our podcast like 3 or 4 times,
I found Rick Mast on Twitter. It was like, hey, I remember you.
and he told us stories about how he was trying to get a ride to get out of the Busch Series and into Cup,
Yep.
and teams were like, "How old are you?" He's like, "I'm 29," and they're like, "Yeah, come on back when you're 30, and then we'll
Which is, I
talk."
mean, which
And
is,
that was in 1988, 1989, somewhere around there.
yeah, it's Junior Johnson always said he liked guys to be in their late 29s or early 30s, which, I mean, if you think about it, seems to be the age where most, I mean, there have been some examples. Chase Elliott's won his championship and he's younger than me, which means but a lot of these drivers that come into to stock car racing at 21, Cup at 21, 22, they don't really mature until they're like 26, 20. I mean, look at Logano. What did Logano do until 2014? Nothing. Or
I got a dissertation on Joey Logano.
well,
That
I watched him
you
so
don't want to
much.
hear it right now, but it's nothing but good stuff.
I watched him come up to the reg, so I remember when he was racing a USAR, but it took a long time for him to look at William Byron. Look at, it took him how many years to win a cup race or look
Well,
at
he
Lars.
won his. I mean, he about the same time period it took Chase to win a Cup race.
Well, yeah,
Took
look at Chase. It took, I mean, the, it was like, well, finally, I mean, look at Larson. It took Larson 99 starts to win a cup race. Whatever you feel about him, I watched the guy last year, and it was the highlight of my year on dirt. That was just holy shit.
he's he's incredible.
He can find
Um,
momentum. He can. He was in like at Eldora. He was, I think, in like fifth place or so. He came from fifth to a hair's breadth of winning in like 2 turns. The dude finds momentum where it doesn't exist. And the thing, if you ever listen to an interview, he's very like, on lap 326, I did this line wrong, and on lap three, How do you remember all that?
some of them just have that, and some of them don't, and it doesn't. What the funny thing about me, the funny thing to me about that is how there are those cerebral guys and gals that know exactly when everything happened always. And then there's the ones that don't remember shit. And
Buddy Baker was one that
sometimes but sometimes they win enough that you're like, well, hell, looks like you did it right to me.
there are some drivers who are more hammer. I mean, Buddy Baker was one who admitted he didn't know the first thing about cars. Gordon Johncock, famous Indy 500 winner and sprint car driver, he would forget how to shift gears if it was been a long. He was in an Indy car testing in Phoenix. It's been a long winter. Which way's low, Gordy? It's an H pattern. So he would, but he was a great driver. He just didn't know. Whereas you've got Mark Donahue, who, if you ever read his book, The Unfair Advantage, it's such an amazing book. He won a NASCAR race, actually. Riverside, 73. If you ever read Mark Donahue's book, he's very like engineer. He was an engineer. So you have the two. I can't think. So who would you say would be the more in NASCAR, the more just, I don't, go for it? Who would, because I know the cerebral ones. Who would be the ones in NASCAR who, like, let's say, aren't as cerebral?
Right now, like who's
Yeah,
racing at Richmond on Sunday?
yeah. Like who right now would you consider to be not as cerebral as, say, a Larson or a you know?
Ricky Stenhouse. He's a dumbass.
I watched I watched him grow up in sprint cars, and yeah,
He
I
is
can't.
a dumbass.
I can't. I don't know if you know who
He would
David
have
Land.
won 6 or 7 more cup races if he wasn't so stupid.
I watched him flip 3 times at Turkey Night in 2019. Finally, the third flip put it out of its misery. I don't know if you know who David Land is, the YouTuber.
I've heard of him.
He was debriefing the Atlanta race, I think in 2019. He was like, "Yeah, the cars were nobody was spinning out except for Ricky Stenhouse, who almost crashed twice."
I call him
Yeah,
Ricky Spinhouse.
well, yeah, and as I said, I watched him flip a midget 3 times. I mean,
That
that
that's
takes a
special.
yeah.
It's a hell of a lot easier to flip a wings like World of Outlaw car than a midget.
I don't know how I mean, usually one flip does the car in, so he was able to get it back on its wheels. See, I've seen him. Yeah, Ricky Stenhouse is just one of the yeah. I watched him grow up to the sprint car ranks, and I don't know if you were watching the ARCA race at
He
Toledo with him
almost
and
got fired by Roush because he couldn't stop putting a Bush car, a nationwide car, in the
in the
wall.
wall. Yeah, he had to
Just couldn't stop.
he had to work in the shop for a while. Do you remember the Toledo race with him him and Scott Speed with
I don't remember that particular race. I don't have a vision of it,
so
but I
he and
remember how
Speed
many
were
times he hit the damn wall in a Roush Xfinity car. Go ahead.
that's why Roush doesn't have a Cup Xfinity team anymore.
Yeah,
I always joke that Stenhouse
they
bankrupted him.
barely have a cup team, by the way.
Yeah,
Barely.
that's depressing, by the way.
That
So
sucks. I like making fun of it because I generally I don't have any good things to say about Ryan Newman except for the fact that he recovered from the thing, and I'll admit to anyone who might listen that I cried when I watched him walk out with his daughters.
I so,
But I know people here. I'm in Mooresville. They're getting divorced. It's real. It
yeah,
that
it's
sucks. But
I see.
I
I
think
was a
he's
big
a good
fan.
person. I just do not like him as a racer.
I was a big fan of Newman in the USAC Sprint midget ranks and the Silver Crown ranks, but he does seem like really over aggressive. So the thing about Stenhouse and Speed, so they were both battling for the ARCA championship. Yes, believe it or not, Scott Speed was battling for a championship, and Stenhouse got into Speed and basically wrecked his car early on in the race, and Speed retaliated by dumping him, and Allgaier won the ARCA championship. I remember watching that and just going, "Wow, that's professional." I
Oh
also remember,
shit! Allgaier was driving for Venturini, wasn't
yes, he was.
he? Yeah.
I I also remember the 2020 Daytona 500, and just I felt like the I felt like the victory lane thing was just so wrong. And you could tell that the TV guys were silent. It was horrible. That was a terrible wreck, and that one scared me. See, that's why I always kind of get a little nervous around Daytona and
Well,
Talladega.
so to your point there, that's another time where Rusty and I texted each other and we said, because we knew we were going to do a show on Tuesday, and they ran that race on Monday.
Yep.
And Rusty was like, I don't want to do the show if Newman is dead. And I said, I 100% agree with you. We are not doing a
Yep.
show if
I,
Newman is dead.
I was watching Brock Beard do his last, his little post race show after the Daytona 500. You could tell he just did not want to do the show. He may, if he ever watches this, he may contradict whatever. You could tell because they didn't know what was going on. He did not want to do the show, and it was actually really painful to watch. And I just remember it was one of those things where you're always looking on the internet looking for any sort of official word. I mean, I've had those experiences way too many times, but it was, yeah, it was terrifying, and I'm glad he got. He is very aggressive behind the wheel, though.
Well, and it just happened to be that he was the one in that position that, and he's been in a couple of those.
He's
And
had like one good
to
season.
his credit, one of the reasons why he probably is still alive and a race car driver is because of his input to NASCAR.
Yep.
Like what he studied at Purdue was structural engineering.
Yeah, he did a lot
And
of safety at the Newman
there's a
bar.
reason why there's something called a Newman bar.
Yep.
And that's the one that kept the car from hitting his brain.
See, I can't. It's hard for me to dislike Ryan Newman because he still races dirt and stuff, and I always respect someone who still races dirt, and I like watching dirt. I'll admit it, but yeah, he is very aggressive. And people, so that's my problem with Chastain is he's like Newman but less talent. He's very aggressive but just doesn't have the talent.
Um, so that, so I'm glad you said that because I like an opportunity to disagree. I think what we see out of Newman, especially the last 4 years, is mostly due to the fact that his car is trash. And he used to be fast, and he's not anymore.
Yeah,
Ross Ross's issue is probably a lot more due to his upbringing, the way he got to where he's at, which is scratch claw, you know. This is, I'm good at this, and then he's still trying to figure it out. And the reality is, if we're all being honest with each other on the side and writing it down on paper, Ganassi's cars are trash.
yeah.
I mean, look at what Larson's doing.
Well, that so
He's got
I
5 top 5s and a win.
I was in a heated debate with people last year saying though how overrated Larson was because he didn't, you know, he would he was competitive in Cup, but he wasn't, 6 wins and in four, but he was never
He had to bounce it off the wall everywhere they went just to have a chance to win.
exactly. And that's what I was. But people, no, he's overrated. He's overrated. And I was like, I even said, wait till he gets into Hendrick, and now he's just. I'll be honest. I really like the guy. I mean, I think he's very talented and a little bit immature sometimes, but very talented.
Well, you know what I think about Larson is not that we were necessarily taking this conversation this direction is,
No, but
and this is the way I treat it on Twitter is the man owned his mistake. It was a
yeah,
nasty ass mistake,
yeah, it
but
was
he
pretty
owned
stupid.
it
Yep.
and he did everything in his, you
Power
know,
to make up for it.
in his power to say, look, this isn't what I am, and this is how I'm going to make up for it. And I'm like, okay, you're good.
Yeah, that
I'm good.
that's
I'm good.
whereas Whereas Mike Wallace doubled down.
Oh, Mike Wallace is a fucking idiot.
Did,
And his younger brother is pretty fucking close.
have you, Kenny?
Yes.
Well, yeah. Have you ever? I don't know how much Arca you watch.
I try to watch as much as I can, but it depends. It ebbs and flows.
So
I want to watch all of it, but I don't always get a chance to do it.
so I was watching Arca, I think in 2018 or whatever. They had Mike Wallace as a pit reporter.
Oh, I bet that was garbage.
That was the worst. Well, Bob Dylan is the host, and I don't like Bob Dylan very much.
Okay.
I like Jim Trado. I really like Jim Trado actually. So Bob Dylan and Mike Wall. If it wasn't for Jim Trado, I probably would have just turned it off. So yeah, that was awful. Rusty Wallace. I like Rusty as a driver. I thought Rusty was a fantastic driver, and in interviews he can be really funny. As a commentator, he does MRN stuff now,
I know. I don't.
and it's
I
just
don't
not
listen
for.
to it. That whole freaking channel is trash.
I listen to the races because sometimes it really it depends. Like so do you like
Well,
the
I mean, like I'm talking about a Sirius XM
Oh
channel
no, I don't
90
listen to I don't
NASCAR.
listen to any of that. I don't listen
That
to
is
any of
that
that.
is 100% trash.
Yeah, I don't listen to any of that. I did when I was 15, and the only show I liked was the one with Rick Benjamin, Trade and
Okay, I
Paint
don't
with
know that
Rickman.
name. Maybe I
He did
should.
he did ASA for a while, and he's more known as like a sports car guy. But he did a show called Trade and Paint, great show. But yeah, I don't listen to I. All I see is people complain about Dave Moody.
You know what?
So
I have had my misgivings about Dave, but his passion is in the right place.
I like his commentary. He gets excited. I mean, okay, I
He does radio the way you should do radio. He is a turn commentator, which means you have to get excited. Every
okay.
time somebody points to you and says it's your turn, get excited.
I
And
love Mike
I
Joy.
like that about Dave. I don't know that I care about his opinions very
No,
much.
no. Okay, I love Mike Joy. Okay, I've been the guy just seems awesome. He knows his history. He's been around for a billion years. I really like the guy, and I like to hear him talk. But he just never gets excited. He just, I mean, or he'll get fake excited. It's be like, and there's a battle for the lead, and then he'll let Boyer and Gordon laugh for a while. But I like Mike, but he never gets excited about anything.
Um, you're not wrong. I
But
think you're 100% right about him not getting excited.
but I
I
do
like,
think he knows his what.
but a lot of people don't like never did like Alan Bestwick, and I'm like,
What?
I thought Alan Bestwick was the best thing that NASCAR ever had.
The only thing I didn't like about Alan Bestick was when he went to ESPN, he would stop talking for long periods, which is like, okay, I get that we want to hear the cars, but this is a restart at Talladega where everything's happening, and I don't know what's happening because I can't see. Talk, AB, talk. but
Ah, yeah. Well, so that's why I imagine your consuming of the radio is more fun for you because they do talk a lot more.
it really depends on the broadcast. Like NBC, I like the radio a little bit more, but I like Alan Bestick. Who doesn't I'm sorry, I can't comprehend who doesn't like Alan Bestrick. That's just a weird opinion.
Uh, dude, I mean, it's the same. I mean, it's not the same people, but it's the same kind of person. Like whoever the hell Delano is calling me a pussy on on Twitter, and it's
I've
like
never met the guy, so I
they're
don't.
the same. They're the same group of people. Like they just don't. It's like, what is it you didn't like about it? Because if you can explain it, maybe I can understand it instead of you just being ornery
Who else are your
about
favorite announcers?
for NASCAR?
Well, for racing, yeah. Because I don't know. I mean, I don't know any football announcers.
Um, well, in terms of entertainment value or intelligence of content.
Well, let's go with content first. Let's go deep and then we can go shallow.
Well, Jeff Burton is the most intelligent of all the guys
He does seem to know
in
his
terms
stuff.
of the delivery of the words.
He does tend to know his stuff.
He,
He
but I
yes.
mean, Jeff knows the words, but Jeff works for Fox. Fox isn't about being smart.
Wait, you mean
I
Jeff?
love Dale Jr. Dale Jr. is way more intelligent than anybody has ever given him credit for. He knows racing, he knows life, he knows a lot of stuff. And people have never given him credit for that. And I've been telling people for 15 years, I said, you guys, you keep calling Dale Jr. a dumbass because he said shit on CBS doing whatever the chainsaw, whatever that thing was that got him in trouble at Talladega back in 2004 or 5.
He said it don't mean shit right now, and I was like, okay, whatever. He said shit. Who cares? I was
And have you noticed how they don't even care? They don't even apologize for somebody
some
saying shit now.
it depends on if it's so. Yeah, it depends on if it's like like Fox, they will, but on like FS1 they just laugh, or
Yeah,
but
like somebody said shit. Okay,
yeah, right, okay, whatever. So I like Dale Jr. As a podcast host. I'm not huge at as I'm not as big as him as a fan as a commentator on NBC, just for my own reasons. But I really like him as it's like Daryl Waltrip. I hated Daryl Waltrip as a commentator, but
I I don't I can't stand Daryl Waltrip as a
but
commentator. I think he's a
hearing him
great
tell
person.
stories,
When he is on a podcast or in an
yes,
interview, he is fantastic.
fantastic. Have you ever watched the Stock Car Legends reunion on YouTube?
I don't know. I've watched a ton of stuff
It's a bunch.
that
Daryl Waltrip.
Daryl was in, and I'm
There's
like,
there's a
man, this guy, why can't he do this while he was teaching us about racing while we were watching it? Because on a podcast or in an interview, he's
he's awesome.
fantastic.
Yeah.
But on a broadcast, he sucks.
It's the same with Larry McReynolds.
Same.
Yeah.
So we're same.
He's
Larry
he's
McReynolds
perfect.
is a fascinating human being. He's extremely intelligent.
But on
On a
races,
broadcast, he fucking blows.
yeah. Steve Letarte. I don't know much about Steve Letarte, but I was listening to him interview Boris Said. I'm kind of a road racer fan, and he was saying like the most. He was asking the most like stock questions about road racing. But who's your favorite entertainment announcer?
For racing?
Yes.
Hmm, that's a great question. Like the one that I want to hear and everybody else shut up and I want to listen to that person.
Yes.
Uh, Probably Junior. Yep, I would
Yeah.
say it's
He's
Dale.
see. I think my favorite racing broadcast. See, I'm a little older. Well, been
You ain't older than me.
well, no. I mean, I've been a race fan for long. Bob Jenkins of the ESPN. Just I just love hearing him talk, and the Jenkins Parsons Jarrett team I think was the best team.
Oh, okay. So, all right. Let me rewind. One of the things I think NASCAR missed when they told ESPN to go away, or ESPN told them they were going away, however that shook out, Dale Jarrett was very entertaining as a broadcaster.
Yeah, I don't know why he's just doing bit stuff for NBC. He does like Xfinity stuff if the main guys can't do it, but I don't know why he's just doing bit stuff for NBC these days.
So I got to meet him one day, very
Oh,
briefly, and I'm not very much a. I don't even know what the right words are. I like to acknowledge that a human being is present, that I know who they are, and that's about it. Like, I don't need an autograph. I don't need a
no.
picture. I I I was at a place in Charlotte, a Taco Mac,
Mhm.
and I walked to the bathroom and I saw Dale Jarrett. And I came back from the bathroom and I pointed at him, made eye contact, said, Dale Jarrett? He said, Yep. He stood up, he shook my hand. I said, I really appreciate what you're doing with NBC. You guys are kicking some ass. Keep doing what you're doing. He goes, Hey, I appreciate that. That's nice. And then I just went back to the bar. That's
Yeah,
it. It was
I,
15 seconds.
it's usually a friend who suggests take a picture because obviously I can't see him and I don't really do autographs. But whenever I meet, like there's no like there's really no persona. If we were talking right now face to face, it would be the same thing. Or I met Bobby
Well,
Rahal in
you
20.
can't see, but I have my video on.
I don't even have a monitor. That's the hilarious. So if I want to do like a YouTube video, like a live stream, I have to take out my old laptop. But I actually don't have a monitor on this thing. So the whole thing.
You don't need one because, I
No, no.
mean, that sense doesn't work for you, so
For
you just need all the other ones.
for the laptop, I don't turn on my monitor because again I can't. So, but the thing is, I met Bobby Rahal in 2019, and I wasn't like, oh my god, oh my god, it's an Indy 500 one. I was like, yeah, hey, I really, I grew up watching you. How you doing? It wasn't like I've also met, Joseph Newgarden and a couple other, but I wasn't starstruck. It was like, yeah, I usually follow these. Like, I could tell you stories about, I remember when Dale Earnhardt Jr. was in the Busch Series, or Casey Kane racing dirt, or every single driver on the NASCAR grid. I could tell you what they were doing beforehand. I remember when Truex was racing. I remember when Martin Truex's father was racing. So it wasn't, but I'm not like starstruck. Oh my God, it's Martin Truex. Hey, Martin, big fan.
Well, so funny anecdote to that same vein is, you know, based on the way a lot of fans of Chase react on the old Twitter, as people trying to kind of get shitty with you
Yeah.
for being a Chase fan, and I'm like, did you watch him run a Bandolero when he was 10 years old? Because I did.
No, but I watched him run late models against like Kyle Busch and Ross Kenseth.
No, and I'm not talking about you
No, but
specifically, but
I'm
I'm
just saying.
like,
So no, I
I get
completely.
this
Yep.
honest,
Yep.
and I'm from Georgia, and he's from Georgia, and I'm like, yeah, I've been watching him since he was 10.
Yep.
When he was 15, I texted a friend of mine whose dad was a huge Bill Elliott fan.
So were we.
And I was like, Wes, I said, I'm going to tell you something. Bill Elliott's kid's going to be something.
Yep.
You just, you just need to pay attention because he's going to be something. 10 years later, he won the Cup championship.
I remember when he won his first Xfinity or nationwide race, I guess, then beating all the Cup guys at Texas, because that was back when unless you were racing a track where there were no Cup guys, you were not going to win a
Correct.
a nationwide race. So it was almost like multi-class racing. We actually would say, okay, who's best in the nationwide class today? Kyle Busch, Carl Edwards. Okay, and then you know, uh, Allgaier third. He was the best in the nationwide. So watching him, and again, I remember watching him in late models, listening to radio broadcasts. So I was already, but it was like, wow, that's pretty impressive that he beat, the Cup guy. I remember, the Larson thing. I remember watching him in a couple races around California, and then I remember Robin Miller was really high on him because he won the 4 Crown Nationals, USAC Sprint Midget and Silver Crown. And in 2012, I watched him win Turkey Night, and I'm like, if this kid's going to the NASCAR, I really hope he's going to be, because I mean I've seen dirt guys come into NASCAR. For every Larson and Stewart, there's a JJ Gailey. JJ Gailey was a fantastic dirt driver.
He may be one of the top 5 dirt race open wheel guys to ever live.
Yeah, fantastic dirt driver.
He won the Triple Crown.
2003.
Not very many people have done that.
Tony Stewart and I think one other have won it in the same year, and I think I'm trying to remember who won.
Casey won the Triple Crown.
Yeah, and somebody else won it, but it was, I think Pancho Carter might have. I don't know. I don't have my USAC stat book with me, which you laugh, but I actually do have one. But
well, no, I don't laugh because I mean you're a fan of racing. Like I mean you got a whole book of knowledge that I ain't got just because you love a variation of racing that I don't pay much attention to outside of just going, yeah, what those guys do is pretty freaking awesome.
Yeah, right. But so the whole thing is, JJ Gailey, fantastic dirt racer. I grew up watching him race. Jason Leffler as well. Sad about Leffler, by the way. I remember watching.
I cried.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't have any other way to say it than that. I cried.
I was on vacation actually, and I heard that a race driver was killed at a local race, and I was like, and they were like Jason Leffler. I was like, oh no, because I really liked him, but they just never. I don't know if they never had the equivalent. Although Leffler got some good finishes in the test car, but Gailey just never gelled. Stewart theorizes because he was a better dirt racer than a pavement racer, which, if you look at Stewart's statistics, he won a lot on both dirt and pavement in the in the sprint ranks. Whereas Ryan Newman, interestingly,
I hate it for Tony that he never got to 50.
Me too. I actually watched.
He's probably sitting at the house shooting a freaking shotgun in the woods, going, "How in the shit did I end up at 49?"
I was there for his last win, by the way.
We got to see Tony win in Atlanta. I mean, I love Tony Stewart to death. I love him for all the reasons I probably shouldn't. He epitomizes a lot of the things that I admire, and lament about my own behavior. Is you can't take passion out, you can't put it in. And sometimes that means good results. Sometimes that means bad behavior. And that Tony epitomizes that.
Yes. Give me a second. Yeah. Well, I know who won the All-Star race tonight.
Well, I hate that I kept you away from it. If you wanted to watch it take place in person.
I know who won the All-Star race tonight. Kyle Larson.
No shit. Man, that kid can race. God damn. That kid can race. I mean,
yes.
As much as we were fans, Rusty and I, of Casey, thinking, him going to Hendrick meant that this might be an opportunity for a championship.
Yeah, it never worked out.
But Larson is the 10 years younger version of Casey.
Exactly. I really think there's so much promise in him.
And he might be a better racer. He may not. It may just be that the time is right for him now. But I see that 5 car boogied on, down the track, and I'm like, damn.
So the two previous All-Star winners are Tony Stewart and Kyle Larson. That's pretty impressive. Um, it's been fun. I do have to go do a few things. This has actually been really fun. I didn't want it to be, antagonistic.
No, it's not at all. And this is why I said I wanted to have the conversation. And some people don't take that the right way, because the conversation's more important than the Twitter. And so what I can say to you is I appreciate it. I didn't ignore you yesterday.
I
It
know. I
was
was I
legit.
was I
I was out, and so when I had time, it actually took me about 20 minutes to download Skype because I
yeah.
use Teams for work. But and that's why it took me a second. But that other feller, who, whether you know him or not, if I see
No.
him had a tweet up, you're gonna see somebody get hit in the face. Because
Film it.
I am freshly over getting called a pussy.
No, well, and he also made a lot of fat jokes, which I thought were a little bit below the belt. Hell, if you, I mean, I know you're busy with the show and stuff, but hell, if you ever want to do this again and just talk racing, or because you have a lot of stories that I like to hear, and
Well,
this is
I have. There's a ton. There's a ton. And uh, while we're on that note, the thing that you said just before that, I'm 5'11" and I weigh 205 pounds.
yeah,
So
I'm much fatter
if
than
I
you
get
are.
called a lard ass, you better expect a reaction. I, 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 I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm 40. I got a little bit going on, but let's I don't know who is doing that. It looks a lot like some people that I've dealt with in my past that have been problematic, and I'm glad for now not to be problematic with you, Elliot.
No, but
I
I've
will
really enjoyed this chat.
I will treat you with a little bit different reverence. That other character, um, I don't have anything for that guy
And
unless he wants to show up for a tweet up and get hit in the face.
and if I say something that makes fun of something like country music or something, just I'm joking. I'm not a huge fan of country, but no, I don't think that all country fans are morons or whatever. It's a joke.
Well, the irony behind that is, and I know you said you needed to go, but I listen to Metallica more than I listen to country.
Yeah, that's
Like, I mean, I learn about music theory from Metallica because they're amazing.
Cliff
Their
Burton knew a
musical
lot about music
their,
theory and
their musical talent is unfreaking real.
yep.
So anyway, I
So yes,
appreciate the fact that you were willing to jump on here, even though it took me a while to get here. We had a great conversation as far as I'm concerned.
yeah,
Um,
that was fun.
we'll
I
probably have another one. Um, I I will try not to be an a-hole to you on the Twitter.
I will be much better. I will be
Um,
much nicer.
that other guy, I'm gonna have to figure out. I've already reported him 5 times from 2 different accounts,
Yeah.
so he's probably not gonna have a Twitter account tomorrow because I'm batting 1,000 on that. And it's
Well,
not because I'm a pussy. It's because he said some nasty shit, and
well,
that needs to go away.
well, yeah, and then you even put Matt Weaver in the conversation. Matt and his girlfriend blocked me, but Matt never did.
She blocked me too, but Matt and I are friends.
I like Matt.
Matt's been on our show
He
12
loves,
times.
huh? He likes sprint car racing.
He he likes racing.
Yeah,
Like that's it. Matt's cool. He's just super introverted.
yeah.
So it's hard to get him to come out. Like he's much better on a microphone than in person. In person, it's really hard to kind of draw him out.
Yeah, I can.
But he is a super nice guy. He's always above board. Anytime somebody picks on him, I'm like,
No, the guy was saying unless he makes stuff up. I've never seen him make stuff up.
he's never made anything
No.
up.
So I'm
No,
glad we could.
and Matt's a big old boy too, by the way.
Yeah,
He,
he's.
he's he yeah. He's about 6'2",
I
running a
wouldn't speak of.
hard 210, 215. If somebody wants to mess with Matt, I'm just going to watch it happen because
Yeah, I wouldn't want to
he's
pick a fight
probably
with
going
him.
to mess them up.
So I do have to do some stuff for my own show really quick. It's been great talk. I'm glad we were able to clear the air. It's not even clear the air. I really wanted to hear your opinion, and I will listen to the podcast with the guy from Microsoft because that sounds really interesting. And
Yeah, Jeremy Korst. Okay. Well, good luck with your show and whatever you're doing with that. I love that you're doing a show.
do you mind if
Uh,
I post this or?
I don't mind as long as you don't mind that I use some bad language there a couple times.
Uh,
I
You
mean,
you
I
you you
don't
haven't
care,
heard our
but
you haven't heard our show. Our show begins with a content warning.
okay. Well,
It's
if it fits your, whatever your profile is, yeah, I'm good with whatever. I didn't say anything I wouldn't
nope.
say in public, so it's fine.
All right. Well, you have to tell me when you feel like doing this again because you're someone I'd like to maybe know a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. I
Yeah.
mean, this is why. That's what I'm saying. I didn't avoid the conversation yesterday. I
No,
wanted to have it. I just
I know. Oh no, I know the feeling. I know what it's like to be really tired.
my work is very intense.
So it's
To say that is the
yes.
nicest way I can say that. It is intense.
So for those of you listening, I hope you've enjoyed this conversation. I certainly did, and I hope it cleared up the debate. I've been Ellie Lindemood. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Elliot.